Trade tensions with the US have hammered parts of the Chinese economy. An exhibitor at a tech fair in Shanghai gave visitors a chance for a bit of symbolic payback.
I think this is great. It would be better if I could use my hands and feet. I think the hammer isn't satisfying enough. Using my fists and feet to strike it would be more real, more intense.
US President Donald Trump's bobblehead has since been removed for being offensive. Japan's Soliton Systems put up the exhibit to give visitors some stress relief. But it's one of Washington's top targets in the trade war, Chinese tech giant Huawei, that's under a lot more stress.
We've done some preparation. It's like a badly damaged airplane. We've protected only the core elements like the fuel tank. We didn't protect our parts.
Speaking at the company's headquarters in the southern Chinese city of Shenzhen, Huawei's founder gave a bleak outlook. Ren Zhengfei says Huawei's revenue will be $30 billion lower than expected this year. It expects to book $100 billion in revenue, about the same as 2018. That's after the US banned it from doing business with American firms. Washington's also putting pressure on its allies to boycott Huawei over concerns it spies on Beijing's behalf. Ren's daughter and Huawei's chief financial officer, Wang Mengzhou, is under house arrest in Canada. She faces extradition to the US for violating Iran sanctions.
I didn't expect the United States to have such a strong and unswerving strategic determination to fight us. At the same time, we did not expect the United States to strike us so broadly.
Analysts say Huawei still holds the advantage of being ahead of everyone else in the development of 5G mobile internet networks. 5G is seen as the key to technologies like driverless cars and artificial intelligence. Huawei says that's a reality the US will have to wrap its head around. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Well, for more on this, let's go to Matt Maley in Newton, Massachusetts. He's Managing Director and Equity Strategist at the brokerage firm Miller Tabak. Welcome back to Money Talks, Matt. Now, the CEO and founder of Huawei has delivered quite a damning assessment of just what damage this US ban has done on his company. Are you surprised by the extent to which Huawei has suffered in less than a month, really?
Well, yeah, I'm surprised on two fronts. First, surprised to the extent of the damage. I'm also surprised to the extent that they're willing to admit that much damage, simply because it probably emboldens President Trump to say, "See, I'm really having an impact here, and this is a war we're going to win." So it gives him a little bit more leverage, I think, going forward. But as for the what's happening to Huawei, and it's obviously it's not just hurting Huawei itself. You have Micron Technologies and Broadcom here in the U.S. reported earnings recently, and very disappointing, lowered revenues, lowered guidance. And so it's a far-reaching situation, and it looks like something that's going to last for a while.
Yes, so how do you think Huawei can possibly recover from this?
Well, it's going to be very difficult because one of the things, initially some people here in the U.S. were saying, well, Huawei only gets 7% of its earnings from the 7% of its revenues from the U.S. But the thing is, that's where their suppliers are here in the U.S. And so if they can't get the products, I mean, yes, they built up some inventory, and that should still last them for several months. But if they can't get the parts that the CEO talked about when he was talking about an airplane, they can't make the products, and that's a major problem when you're, as you talked about in your previous piece, how as we're having this evolution towards 5G, if they're not able to get their products and to suddenly find new suppliers in a very short time frame is going to be very, very difficult. So this is happening at a very difficult time for the company, and I think we're going to see some more damage before the situation is resolved.
As we know, the Trump administration says that this ban is in place over national security fears. But do you think perhaps there's an element of the US trying to really stifle Huawei's growing dominance and its rise in the world?
Oh yeah, there's no question that that's part of a good part of the case. I mean, let's face it, the president has said that if we can come to an agreement on the trade negotiations, Huawei, he might remove some, a lot, or if not all of the restrictions on Huawei. Well, if it's a problem of national defense or national security, why would he be willing to do that if even if they got a trade deal? I mean, if it was that important, he'd say, hey, even after a trade deal, we're still going to put the screws to Huawei. So there's no question that there's a political element involved, and he's worried. I mean, it's part of a bigger situation too, where China's playing catch up with the U.S. It's going to become a global power on par with the U.S., and the U.S. is trying to slow that situation down.
Interesting. So what do you think it'll take for Donald Trump to one day perhaps reverse this ban?
Well, we're going to have to get an agreement on the trade situation. The one thing that's going to be very interesting is that how much does he want to play hardball? I mean, you have a situation where on the one hand, it sounds like, hey, I'm gonna play hardball with this. It's obviously hurting Huawei. As long as we stick with this, we're gonna put enough pressure on China over time, and they're gonna have to cave in on issues like intellectual property and such. The problem with that kind of view, however, is that the election is coming in 18 months, less than 18 months now, 17 months in 2020. And if we continue to have these technology companies suffer their revenues and their earnings, it's going to have a negative impact on the stock market. And we know how important the stock market is to the president. So I think we have a situation at some point later this year, he's going to get what he can get and declare victory. And that should help Huawei. But for the time being, it could be a tough road to hoe.
Over in China, the President Xi Jinping has given subtle hints that he may use China's dominance in rare earths against the US if the Trump administration doesn't let up. Rare earths, as we know, are vital in pretty much all electronic components that we have these days. Do you think China will get to the point where it will actually pull that trigger?
Well, I think they're going to do. If it's not that, it's going to be something in that realm. Because everybody that I talk to, everybody that I read about, everybody I listen to, who have actual experience in China. A lot of people in the U.S. say, "Oh, that China is hurting them too much," but they've never been there. They've never done business there. When you talk to the political leaders who spent a lot of time there, and you talk to the business leaders who've done a lot of business there, they all say that China is going to play hardball for a long time. And so so I do expect them to do something like that with the rare earth issues.
Okay, let's keep an eye on that. Matt Maley in Massachusetts, thank you for your analysis as always.